Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Ellen live from St. Bart's. Today we are discussing diversity for survival as a designer or a business, the risk of reopening, and using Beagles to detect COVID, all on Light Talk.
And this is David, coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
And Sistah.
Right, Sistah! Hey, Stan is on sabbatical, and our dear Lumen sister, Ellen, has graciously joined us. How are you doing, Ellen?
I'm great. I'm just living the pandemic life in the tropics.
And how's the weather down there today?
It's hot and sunny. Close to
so
90.
No frozen octopus running around.
Yes, very many.
Well, thank you for joining us, Ellen. It's always great to have you here. And welcome, everyone, to episode 210, which is our 4th anniversary show.
Yay.
About time.
And there's much rejoicing. That's right. Today we start year 5 of Light Talk. Can you imagine year 5? 5 years. Well, we're starting our 5th year? That's insane.
And for our friends in Oklahoma, hold your hand up and look at it. That's how many.
You're dissing Oklahoma right now. There you go. Typical from a Texan to diss Oklahoma. So here we go. Year 5. And we're going to start off year 5 with some news. Well, as we mentioned last week, Jeff Ravitz and Jim Moody have a new book. And they're starting their book tour. And guess what? I went ahead and I asked Jeff, and they have agreed to start their book tour on Light Talk. So in a few weeks, we're going to have Jeff and Jim here. And hey, listen, they could have chosen Regis and Kathy Lee. They could have chosen Good Morning America. Hell, they could even have chosen Live Design Online. But they,
or the Home Shopping Network.
Or the Home Shopping Network. But they chose Light Talk. So, Ellen, it would be great if you were here with us to
Absolutely.
go ahead and do it.
I love Jeff Ravitz and Jim Moody, two of my favorite lighting designers.
All right. So we just got a commitment from Ellen. So she'll be here with us to help interview Jim and Jeff.
You know, I shouldn't probably admit this in public, but I met Jeff Ravitz in 1988 in Dallas at the very first LDI.
Wow.
We go back a bit.
So when's LDI coming back to Dallas? When are you putting Vegas in your rearview mirror and coming
Never
to
gonna
Dallas?
happen. Never
Probably
gonna happen.
never.
Man, we have pancake houses here. We got Hooters.
Strip
We got
bars.
McDonald's. We got it all.
I don't know. Vegas is pretty hot.
Everybody wants to go to Vegas, for God's sake, especially now. So we're all looking forward to LDI this year. It's going to be really great. and
Absolutely.
exciting.
I want you to go to Vegas, too. I have stock in MGM. So we got to get those rooms filled up.
Absolutely.
Are we staying at MGM next time? Where are we going to stay now that the Hard Rock is closed?
I'm staying at the Hard Rock, whatever that is. What's it, the Virgin Hotel? That's where I'm staying.
Oh, you know that bar's not going to be there anymore.
I don't care.
Okay.
There'll be something even better.
All right.
And I'm not going to be at the bar. I'm going to be at the show floor walking around. I mean,
I don't know. I saw you more at the bar than at the show floor last time.
I was there with my friend Sammy Buca.
That's okay. Next bit of news, we have some upcoming guests. And next week, we're going to have my dear friend Paul Curran, and we're going to have a guest host. Driscoll Otto will be our guest host next week. So make sure you tune in for that. Paul is a very, very prominent director, has an amazing history, and has pretty much directed everywhere. So yes, tune in next week for Paul Curran. And Ellen has a couple of items here that she'd like to talk about.
Well, yeah, one of them is really interesting. Currently at the at ASU, there's a very interesting exhibit. Well, it's a drive-through event, as I understand it, at in a parking garage, and it was the brainstorm of John Featherstone, who's the principal lighting designer at Light Switch, and he was concerned that there's a lot of people out of work and lots of gear just sort of sitting around, and lots of design students who are going to graduate without really having done, their senior show. So he got together with Jake Pinholster, who's one of the deans over at ASU, and they've opened something that's called Design Space. And it's a mile-long drive-through museum-like experience that takes you on a journey to outer space. And it's all with lighting and video in a parking garage. It's been totally transformed. at Arizona State University. It's up and running now through April 25th. And there's a lot of gear in there from manufacturers like Robey, Martin, Elation, Grand MA. And there's a whole video component from Video West. And if you go online and noodle around Facebook a little bit, John's page, especially, there's photographs and video of this thing. And it's really, really kind of extraordinary. So I just wanted to sort of, take my hat off to John for brainstorming this thing.
That is so cool. So that's at Arizona State University, right?
Yeah, it's at Arizona State, ASU, and it's up and running. You can drive through it through the 25th of this month, 25th of April. And like I said, it was John Featherstone from Light Switch who came up with the idea and got a lot of people to work with him on it. And they're all very, very proud of it. So I wanted to give kudos to John for that. And the other funny thing in the news this week was using beagles to detect COVID.
I read about this last night because when you said this, you want to talk about it. I did a little bit of research. It's pretty cool.
Well, it is cool. And, dogs have been used to detect other diseases already. And obviously, we all know that beagles are used in airports to detect, drugs and other things. They'll even find like fresh fruit in your luggage if you're not supposed to be bringing it in from out of the States. And Andrew Gumper, who is a big festival, not a festival organizer, but he provides the gear for really, really big festivals. He does these massive steel stage, rigging and stuff. He's got a AG Productions out in Vegas and does really, really big stuff for those big festivals. And, talk about diversity and pivoting and stuff. Andrew decided that, how can we really make the industry safe enough to reopen? And he had this idea that service dogs were being used to do things like remind diabetic patients that it was time for their insulin or tip off patients who were about to have a seizure. So he had this idea whether dogs could be used to sniff out people with COVID. And lo and behold, apparently it works. And he has partnered with a company called STEM Bioscent, which is in Florida, and they train sniffer dogs. And Andrew Gumper is about ready to let the dogs out. And the idea is to protect the crew as well as the audience at these large events. And who knows, he may get a chance pretty soon. There's an Electric Daisy Carnival supposedly coming up at the end of May. Right there in his hometown of Vegas. And if it works, it could be a real game changer. Although I don't know what they do with you if you're in line to go to a concert and the dog says, yeah, this one.
Yeah, right. Then we get into some of those crazy people say, it's my right to have COVID.
Right. Well, I guess you would get tested. And if you tested positive on the spot, they wouldn't let you in. So, that goes along with testing and vaccination passports and temperature taking and all of the other ideas that have come along to try and protect people. But this is really a pretty clever idea. And the beagles are adorable. And I wish Andrew a lot of luck with this. I hope it pans out.
Cool.
I think you do that at LDI. I mean, it would just put you in a good mood when you walk in the morning and there's a corridor of like 30 beagles all wagging their tails and looking at you.
Exactly. Sniffing out the apples in your pocket.
Yeah, that's the problem. Too many people would be playing with the dogs and not going into the damn convention.
What's so much better than a German Shepherd walking up to you?
Well, yes, the beagles are cute and they're a little less terrifying. And I think that they tried other dogs like bloodhounds and stuff like that, but the beagles turned out to have the best size, shape, and
shape.
Olfactory.
They're short and
I think
stocky.
the bloodhounds weren't the right size. I don't know.
They're not fast enough either, the bloodhounds. Right. So just they're pretty lumbering dogs. All right, and then let's move on. We've got the winner of the Light Talk theme song Tik-Tok Dance-Off. It was tough judging this year, and as promised, we were going to announce it today, and we still are going to announce it. So after, hours and hours and hours of watching these entries, we have come up with a three-way tie. Ta-da! It's a good thing we were not giving away a Tesla. Because we have a three-way tie. First of all, there's nothing like the original. And that goes to the Gen Z breaking rendition by Lily Annabelle. And we all know that Lily is now the head choreographer for the Luminettes. And we'll see her on the Light Talk World Tour. Then we had Ethan Steinmel's rendition from a purely white male and shamelessly clumsy point of view, but a bold artistic statement nonetheless. And then we had a late entry from our friend Drew Belinsky that has placed our Light Talk theme song with the great car driving songs of the past, including Highway Star, Born to Run, and Paradise by the Dashboard Light. So congratulations to these 3 excellent contestants, and they will all get a not safe for dishwasher Light Talk coffee mug. So please, now that you know that you've won, send me your address so I can send you these crappy coffee mugs.
You know, that's going to start their day off. I mean, it's going to be a perfect Saturday morning now.
And it's funny because we were talking this morning about what our swag's going to be for LDI this year. And we are going to, should we just announce it or just say we'll wait?
I think we announce it. I think it's safe.
Well, I'll let you announce
And
it.
Ellen can't keep a secret anyhow.
No, that's true. So go ahead.
Well, I think backed by popular demand, the Light Talk shot glasses.
Absolutely.
And new for 2021, a very tastefully designed Light Talk lapel pin.
Oh.
That's right. Just like the Olympics, you can start trading pins at LDI.
Great idea.
There you go.
You know, we could also do patches too, but I think the pin's a better idea than a patch.
Yeah, the pins are good.
And if you're lucky enough to get a pin and you go to the MGM Hotel bar, if you show them that pin and a $20 bill, you will get a drink.
20, what a deal. Yeah, the drinks are free. Why would you pay for a drink in Vegas? That's not what I can never understand.
Do you like that shameless plug for the hotel that I have a stock
Yes,
invested
I
in?
noticed that. I noticed that shameless plug. Oh, it's going to be so sad without the circle bar there. Anyway, let's get this crazy show started. Steve has our first question.
Yes, Josh in Utah says, can you discuss ways I can improve my follow spot work? I'm still having trouble with dead pickups. All right. Josh, I want you to go find the technical director or the production manager because you have to get them on board before you do this. Do not do this without permission from the TD or production manager or master electrician. You know, one way to improve your follow spot work, go to your follow spot, and if you're in a booth, it's really easy. If you're in a catwalk, you might have to hang, a piece of cardboard or something. The follow spot typically has light leaks in it. If it doesn't, drill a small pinhole so that light comes out the back of your follow spot. And you can usually do this up around the boomerang area.
Yeah, don't do it in the front because then light will go out to the audience.
Do not do it in the front. So you have a little pinhole, little lights coming out. Behind the follow spot, you have a wall or a board, a poster board. Simply draw out the stage and then find your dead pickups. So if I have a microphone down center, before the rehearsal starts, I pick that microphone up with my follow spot. I look at the little beam of light coming out the back and see where it is hitting the piece of cardboard or the wall. I then make a little circle. So if the little beam of light coming out aligns with the circle, when it's a completely black stage, you know that when you open up the dowser, the big spot is going to hit the person at the center microphone. So you can make all these little targets, and you throw your cardboard away, or you clean your dry erase board off, and for the next show you do the same thing. So it's very easy to do that. There are other ways. There are scopes and things like that, but I think this is the quickest, dirtiest, easiest way to do it.
And if you want to play a great practical joke on your spot mate, before the next show, just slightly move each one of those spike marks.
or just move the board.
Or just move the board.
Move the board half an inch to the left.
That's right. It'll drive them crazy.
Claire in San Diego writes, I have been reading the news about theater companies and other live entertainment reopening. What are the risks to the public and the people who work in the industry? Well, I guess the biggest risk is getting sniffed by a beagle. But otherwise, we really want to try to protect everybody. So I think that different states and different cities will have guidelines about social distancing, wearing masks, getting tested, showing your vaccination passport. And I think those passports are going to be really important. There are a lot of people who think it's a lack of personal freedom, like, oh my God, why do I have to have a vaccination? And why do I have to have a vaccination passport? But for people who travel a lot already. You know, you can't go to certain countries in South America without getting a yellow fever vaccination. So I assume this is sort of along the same lines. And we just have to keep our fingers crossed that there's really light at the end of the tunnel and the industry is going to open and those beagles are going to do their job.
It is a question that everyone's having, and everyone's a little nervous right now. People moving into summer theaters now. They're starting. I mean, rehearsal's going to be beginning next month. And a lot of places, they don't even have clearance yet, but they have a pretty good idea of what's going to be required. But most of these are all outdoors, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens when people move indoors.
You know, I'm starting my third kind of 1 hour, 90-minute independent film project, and everybody from the donut guy to the cinematographer has a mask on. I mean, there's just no one is even batting an eye about this. People want to be safe. They want to work and they want to be safe, and they want to keep the people safe around them.
Karen in Berlin writes, how important was your education to your career path? Or to put it another way, what was the most significant factor in your development and success? And did you recognize it at the time? Wow, Karen, I love this question because I think no matter what you do or what you end up, what career you end up being in, this is pertinent because you never know what did it. What was that point in your career? I just think back at my personal career. I just was taking advantage of every single opportunity I had. And I had no idea if the decision I was going to make, how it would affect my future journey. Yes, it was extremely important, my education, both my undergraduate and my graduate work. I can't overstate how important that was. I went to the University of Miami, did my undergraduate work there, and just did nothing but musicals. I was able to musical direct shows, and I was also able to light them and learn how to light musicals with really good directors. And then my graduate work at SMU was a wonderful opportunity for me. And again, these are all choices that you have when you decide what your education is going to be, what school you're going to go to. Very, very important. I was fortunate that I had good people who would saying, no, you want to go to the University of Miami. No, you want to go to SMU. Theron must have basically told me that you should go to SMU to study with Bill and Jean Eckart and Alan Heaton. And she was correct. And I was wise enough to take that.
How did you know Theron Musser?
Oh, well, this is a story I told before on Light Talk. I was fortunate because my teacher at the University of Miami introduced me to Theron when she was in Miami back in 1976, I believe it was. He arranged a meeting, and it was the thrill of my life, of course. And she asked me, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to go to Yale. And she goes, no, you don't want to go to Yale. I said, what? She goes, well, you want to go someplace where you can continue doing your music. And you're not going to be able to do that at Yale. So there's a great school out in Dallas. And she told me all about it. And she was right. For me, SMU was the choice. For many, many others, it could be Yale, right? You never know. But I was fortunate that I was wise enough to listen to pay attention and say, I think this person knows what the hell she's talking about.
Very smart.
Thank God she came into my life at that point. And then there was another big moment, and that was when I was graduating and I went to New York for the League show. And I had Gilbert Hemsley and Neil Jampoulis just say, no, you're not coming to New York. You're going to assist us. And I said, oh, wow. So that was great. And then there was a moment when Gilbert asked me to come to New York and to move to New York. And actually, I did not. For various reasons, I felt that it was more important for me to stay where I was and to pursue my career. And I never regretted that. I just never regretted it. So you never know. At the time, did I recognize it? No, I didn't recognize it. But certainly looking back, you do.
I think the first opportunity that I got to work in a fully professional theater, Union House. I'm there designing a show, and the thing that struck me, and it was just like kind of the clouds parted, was the relationship between the director and the other designers who were older than I and more experienced, and the acting company. And the thing I noticed is that everyone came prepared. And, I'd come from a college, right, where the director is kind of telling people what to do and people are waiting to be told what to do. But now I'm in a professional environment, and the director would say something and the actors would give it a try and go, what about this? What about that? So I guess it was the first time I saw real collaboration going on. And the same thing, I saw the director turn to the set designer and ask questions about staging. So it was just kind of an eye-opening thing in which everyone brought something to the table all the time. They walked in the room, they were ready to work, and their opinions were valued. And now at the end of the day, the director made final choices and decisions, but still that conversation had not happened in the university. Two different worlds. But I saw that and I said, this is how it's supposed to be done. And this is what people who do it for a living, how they prepare, what they do when they walk into the room, and how they take criticism, and how they respond to all that. So it was eye-opening, and this is the profession I've chosen to go into, and it seems like this is going to be fun.
Ellen, how about you?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to tell because I don't really do what I went to school to do. But I think that one of the most important things about I got my master's degree in arts administration, theater management at Brooklyn College. At a time when a lot of people were going to Yale to their theater administration program. But I wanted to stay in New York. I was working as a publicist at the Brooklyn Academy of Music and really didn't want to leave New York to go to New Haven at that time. And luckily, most of the classes from the Brooklyn College graduate program in theater were at the City University of New York building, which was on 42nd Street at the time. So we did not have to go take the 1 hour subway out to Flatbush Avenue, which was really quite a trip in those days. So it was, I think, the meeting of all of the people who worked in all of the different aspects of professional profit and nonprofit in New York City and elsewhere that was really, eye-opening to me. And it all sort of dovetailed with what I was doing at BAM and just sort of led from one thing to another. And here I am, all these years later.
That's amazing. For people who always wonder, am I making the right decision, wrong decision? I think you just need to make the decision and listen to people who are, have more experience than you do, and then go with your gut.
Right.
You got to go with your gut. And I don't think any of us look back and regret any of these decisions. That's part of life. It's always this crazy journey, and you never know what sort of things are going to come your way. So go for it.
No, it's absolutely true. And, in the summer of 1983, I guess I was going to France. And Pat Mackay, who was the publisher of Theater Crafts and Lighting Dimensions at the time, and a very good friend, said to me, while you're over there, maybe you could interview some French designers or write something about the festivals you're going to. Right. And I sort of looked at her and said, I don't know how to write anything except a press release. What do you mean, write something? So she goes, you'll figure it out. And that was really the beginning of my shifting from doing arts administration and publicity to the journalism side of things. And then my first freelance article was in Theater Crafts in 1983. And when 1988 came around, Pat was like, I'm starting this trade show. You have to come back and work with me on this. So that's when I sort of started migrating away from the south of France back to the United States and eventually down here to the
that could have been a regret, moving from the south of France.
Moving from the south of France, yeah,
exactly.
There are days I wonder, but how I got stuck in the Caribbean on a 10,000 person island, with there's no theater and no arts whatsoever. But fortunately, the internet exists and you can watch everything you want to see online.
That's wonderful.
Well, you are listening to Light Talk, and today, Light Talk is sponsored by
It's Better Than Nothing Industries. Lost paperwork can be scary and upsetting. Being calm will help you make the best decisions to get your beloved light plot back home safely. That can be easier said than done. But if you do lose paperwork, what can you do? Up until now, you were just out of luck. That is where Better Than Nothing Industries steps in with the LD Paperwork Microchip. That's right, now you can get chipped, just like your favorite pet. The LD Paperwork Microchip is a database, not only of your current projects, but of your life's work, embedded into your body that can be accessed by a wireless interface that uploads your Vectorworks file as you draft. Sounds a little crazy at first, but let me give you 3 reasons you might want the LD paperwork microchip. Number 1, your past light plots get lost. Don't think it'll never happen to you. USITT reports that 1 in 3 light plots will go missing at some point in your lifetime. Unlike a flat file, which can get easily lost in a move, burst into flame, or tossed into the garbage by a loved one, the LD paperwork microchip is a safe and reliable way to retrieve your vital information about your current and past masterworks. Number 2, your plot may be stolen. Let me share a story with you, a rock and roll story of a light plot. A plot we'll call Waffles, who was stolen and presented by a worthless scab lighting designer to a band as his own creative work. When the original designer finally tracked Waffles down, the thief denied it was a stolen design. That's where the LD paperwork microchip stepped in. A quick scan of his back, and there it was, a complete record of Waffles, including follow spot color, and shortly, Waffles was back at home safe and sound. And finally, number 3, what if something happens to you? Maybe you'll get hit by a car while walking home. You are severely injured. You have no memory of what you were doing, but a scan of the LD paperwork microchip, once you do get to the hospital, allows the producer to download the information and hire your replacement to execute the design. The show must go on, Pilgrim. The LD paperwork microchip, it's not perfect, but hey, it's better than nothing.
But you do know that there are people out there who think that your COVID vaccination will actually be a chip. So I figure they could just put your credit card number on there too. You never have to carry a credit card. Just scan your wrist.
That's right. And your entire resume, especially if you're single and you're dating, it'd be great for someone to just to access that chip to get your entire resume and all your likes and dislikes and quirky things. And wouldn't that be great?
And the database of everyone you've gone out with in your entire life.
That's right.
Hang on, I need to go get some tinfoil and just kind of wrap my head right now. You know, yeah, you're laughing. That day is coming. I'm surprised it's not here. That day is coming.
And, you know, they have like a barcode reader and they run it across the back of your pet and they say, oh, time for the next vaccine. I'm like, what?
That's right. That's right.
Well, I mean, years ago, they were chipping children. You could have little Jimmy chipped.
Really?
And well, the idea behind it was that if your child was kidnapped or lost, they could start pinpointing where that child was. This was sometime, I think this was about 10, 12 years ago. They were trying this idea out. And, you know, for obvious reasons, people were freaking out over it.
Well, if Andrew Gumper is listening and he's got those Beagles chipped, he'll be next in line.
That's right. Get those Beagles chipped, damn it.
And now back to Late Talk.
Well, those crazy ducks tell us that once again, it's time for another installment of Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about diversity for survival as a lighting designer or as a business. This is really interesting. Diversity for survival. Ellen, tell us about this.
Well, you know, I think the past year has been an eye-opener for a lot of people. People who always worked in an office, they worked for somebody else, and all of a sudden they found themselves working from home. People had been laid off, people had been furloughed, companies have closed or, you know, gone out of business, and people were faced with, oh my goodness, what am I going to do for an alternative source of income in addition to my industry job, which I'm furloughed from and may not get back? I interviewed one front of house audio engineer who has become a very successful day trader and has gotten engaged and says he may never go back out on the road doing concert touring. He's discovered life at home with someone he loves.
Go figure.
And someone who we all know and love, Bob Boniol, who is a lighting and projection designer, has totally pivoted and has been doing incredible online virtual conferences for people, you know, making online communities in the corporate world and becoming like a life coach and teaching and advising and expanding and pivoting. And he would probably be a great guest on Light Talk to talk about this. I also think that if you're teaching, you really have to encourage your students to diversify. That if they all come into your program with Broadway as their goal, they're probably going to be disappointed. There's very few people who really ever design on Broadway. It's a small club. And I think that the students really have to know that there's a million other things they can do out there and that they should diversify as they're going along. If you want to be a designer, you should probably also be an electrician. Your neighbor can hire you to rewire their house when you're in downtime, or do architectural design. Get a teaching position, learn systems integration, be the IT expert as well as the designer. And I think all those things, people with diverse skills have survived much better during this past year.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the matter of survival when you think about it. And that's why it says diversify for survival.
Right. And I don't think a lot of us were ever confronted with it before.
No.
And this year has been really a game changer for a lot of people. And those who have succeeded were able to pivot quickly and diversify. And I think that really is the buzzword going forward, because who knows what might happen another 5 or 10 years down the road. If you're a lighting designer going from regional theater to regional theater and there's no regional theater for 18 months, what are you going to do?
I was talking to a friend last night, and they said around October, they were becoming really afraid and worried. And this diversity thing, last night they were saying, I figured out how I can survive, and not just survive and get by, but survive and thrive. They looked at all the skills they had, as you're suggesting, and it was almost like opening up the telephone book and finding all the people who needed them. So life wasn't so scary anymore.
Yeah, I remember back during the 80s, there was a really bad recession in the United States, and I lost all my gigs. Everyone lost their gigs. And I ended up selling real estate for a year or two. I mean, you just have to do what you have to do, and just to survive. Now, I was in a much more fortunate position this time because I have a teaching career, and that didn't end. So I didn't have to go out and try to make money. However, it drove me crazy not traveling, and staying at home all that time really kind of drove me nuts. It's still kind of driving me nuts. I haven't gotten over it yet. So I don't know. I just think that you're right. We should get Bob on. Ellen, maybe you want to make that connection. That would be fantastic to get him on the show. But yeah, a lot of people have done that. I don't think they weren't able to sit at home and wait. And that's another reason why you should have a broad-based education.
Yeah, and people with companies, going back to John Featherstone a minute, or Jim Tetlow at Nautilus Entertainment Lighting, people who really diversified their companies from the ground up, so that if for some reason the architectural field is a little slow, the corporate lighting jobs may go up, or, to really make sure that there's a lot of things going on. I mean, Jules Fisher has to be the ultimate diversification person, because he's got, his lighting design career, and then he's got Fisher Dax Associates, which are theater consultants. They've got so much going on there that, there's always something going on. And I think that that's really a good something for us to learn. And as I said, teach your kids that there's more than Broadway out there. And if that's their goal, shore it up with a lot of other things that they can do.
So Ellen, are you going to explore diversity at LDI? What can LDI do to help promote this idea?
Well, diversity means a couple things at LDI. One means, diversity in terms of underrepresented communities, of bringing in different kinds of people into the industry. But diversification in terms of this is really interesting. And our production manager at LDI is Bill Dignite. And I'm sure you guys have met him along the way. I think he's probably set up your podcast studio at LDI.
Yes.
He's running a theater department in northern Michigan. And this is something that he really, really believes in. And he's addressed student audiences at LDI and at ERTA and different places about, you really, really have to look beyond just the Broadway stage. And he's teaching these kids that there's, careers in the club world, and there's, architectural and, corporate. And I think that it's definitely something that we should address, especially this year, we want to expand attendance at LDI to the young professional early career people and really, bring them in. And partly because we love USITT, but they have not had a live show in 2 years. And I think that as successful as their virtual conference was this year, there's a lot of young professionals out there and kids that are just graduating, having spent a year at home on the computer, who would really love to come to the show. So we're going to tailor some programs for them, for the young career professionals. And I think diversification of your skills portfolio is a big part of that.
That sounds great.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
You guys may get called in to talk to them, so hold on.
All right. Put us on the list. We're there.
Well, the portfolio review will definitely be part of that, and the pop-up ERDAs and some sessions that are really designed at these people about, we have people like Bob Boniol and Dan Banitsky who do life coaching and really help people in the industry. So I think it's a very important program that we're trying to launch this year.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder, not to change the subject, although it's really not changing the subject, but how much life coaching has exploded over the past year with the pandemic. Can you imagine? I mean, a lot of people need life coaches at that point.
Well, I think they do. And I think that, people, personal relationships are really, really important in life. So if you go to the office every day and you have your, it's a joke, but like your office wife or your office husband or your teammate, or you're working on a small team of people on a big project, or you're mentoring someone who's just come in. And all of a sudden you've spent, over a year at home with just your immediate family, who of course you love dearly, but it's not the same kind of relationships. And I see that people I work with are trying to what do you do if you're a single mother and you have a 4-year-old who's trying to be, 4-year-olds don't do a lot of homeschooling. They're barely reading, or they don't read. So what are they doing all day? And how do you keep them amused? And what if you can't afford full-time childcare? And what if your company says you can't have a 4-year-old on your lap while you're on a company Zoom? And people whose husbands are unemployed or wives are unemployed, and all of a sudden they're trying to do their work at home with a spouse who's just there 24/7. I think people's lives have changed dramatically.
Totally. Absolutely.
I have a friend who works for Freddie Mac, and in that changing life, she has been working at home now for a year. Freddie Mac said, how would you like to work at home, 4 days a week? As we move forward, do we really need to reopen the office? You're doing great work at home. So there's going to be a real change of how we conduct business. Even when the world opens up, we're finding ways to be more efficient.
Well, that's happening everywhere in the corporate world now. So, which is good. It's who would ever imagine that going through this horrible pandemic there'd be a silver lining? But I think that's part of the silver lining to this, is that we're realizing how to be more efficient and more environmentally friendly.
Yes, but some people can't work at home. They wake up in the morning and they go make a cup of coffee, and then they see a plant that needs to be trimmed, and then they realize they didn't put the oil in their car yesterday, and then when they go in the garage to get the oil for the car, they see the laundry wasn't done, but there's no laundry soap, so they want to go to Costco and get the laundry soap, and then their wife gives them a 4-hour shopping trip. And, you have to really be... you have to set boundaries for yourself. I've worked at home for practically forever, but you have to have a dedicated space. I have an office. I come in here, I close the door. And like a friend of ours that used to work for us, one of the salespeople at LDI, said he was lucky that he had to take his kids to school every day because he worked at home, but he had to get up, get dressed, have breakfast with the kids, drop them off, and then come home and get to work. I sometimes, and other people I know, wander into their office, in pajamas or Zoom wear, and all of a sudden it's 6 o'clock and you haven't gotten dressed and you haven't done anything else,
Join the club.
So there's either the overworkers or the one that's still wandering around the garage at 4 o'clock.
Well, none of our gig worker friends are going to work at home. I mean, that's not going to be an option for them. There are very few riggers who are going to work out of their house.
Well, yes, and that's why everybody applauds those frontline workers who got us through this pandemic.
Thank God.
Where would we be without those people who had to take the bus and go work in a grocery store every day, and taxi drivers and Uber drivers and, Grubhub delivery people. And I mean,
God bless them all. Bless them all.
absolutely.
What's kind of interesting is listening to our friend Ethan Steimel and his podcast, Artistic Finance. And we're hearing all these stories of people in the industry who are doing exactly what you're talking about doing. They're finding ways to make a living.
That's right. Well, this is a really great subject and to be continued, obviously. So everybody look for other things to do or how to expand your own knowledge base just for survival. So Steve has our last question of the day.
William in North Carolina writes, my teacher just said that I, the lighting designer, was like a drummer in a band, while the scenic designer was like the lead guitarist. Do you agree? Damn, William.
It depends on who your lead guitarist is. If they suck, that's a whole nother situation. If they're like Richie Blackmore, then you may be okay.
I mean, I don't know. This could be harassment. I mean, drummer, really? I mean, at least he or she could have said you're like the bass player.
No, wait a second. Yeah, we really need Zach Bovray on right now to talk about this. Who's a bass player and a hell of a bass player? Because he's the bass player in the Luminoids. But that being said,
I'm not quite sure, William, how to answer this. I mean, I guess, does he mean you're like back there just kind of keeping the beat?
No, I think the drummer plays a much more important part than that in the band.
So do I. I always listen to drums first.
I think the drummer holds everybody together, and they really set the tone for what the band is going to sound like. And yes, you can go off on a lead guitar riff or a bass riff or some, saxophone solo, but I think that drummer's really holding everything together. So
absolutely.
I think he's saying that the lighting design, you can change the color of the set, you can change the color of the costumes, you can affect the way the emotions go up and down. The lighting really is, maybe it is that drum beat that's holding everything together.
Well, where on your scale is the costume designer?
I think the costume designer could be the keyboard player.
Oh, I don't know. I think the lighting designer is the keyboard player because the keyboard player is the most intelligent one of the group. All right? Because usually the keyboard player is the only one in the damn band who can read music and understands composition and theory. All right? Usually.
I think what he's saying is you're at the back of the stage in the dark surrounded by fog.
I know what William is saying, and I'm not appreciative of this at all. Because first of all, I love drummers, and I agree with Ellen. The drummer is the key. I always listen to the drums first, to tell you the truth.
I think the lighting designer is more like the horn section.
The horn section?
Yeah, just all of a sudden, here it comes. Just a blast, and there it is. And you go, wow. I love that. I love that horn section.
I don't know. Isn't good lighting supposed to be, seen and not heard?
They always say that. Yeah. That's like,
But that's not what we want.
You have a great personality. You have a good personality.
Give me a good audience blaster and I'm happy. Anyway, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, livedesignonline.com, and just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you do decide to litigate, the law firm of Flecht, Flocked, Flare, and Glare and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and Sistah, coming to you from Long Beach, the mysterious Bermuda Triangle, and from deep in the heart of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we have Director Extraordinaire Paul Curran on Light Talk.
And a new sponsor.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Thank you, Ellen, for joining us today. And bye-bye from Light Talk.
Toodles.
Bye-bye.
Light Talk.